There's a very, very strong, very powerful feminine shadow that is about to surface over the next couple of months. We have several different transits in astrology that are helping this. First is the Venus retrograde. Second, we have the dark moon moving into Scorpio. And we have a full moon eclipse that's happening in Virgo. And this is kind of the final cherry on top. Venus goes direct on the same day that there's a full moon in Libra in March. April? I think it's April. April 13th is that full moon in Libra. March 2nd starts the Venus retrograde. March 27th is the dark moon moving into Scorpio. And the eclipse in Virgo is 1 month from today. Oh my God, it's only a month away. It's on March 14th. I'm filming this on February 14th. So, oh my goodness. 1 month? Let me not be pressed about it. We did just have the full moon. I guess that makes sense. Anyways, moving on and back into this feminine shadow. So a lot of the previous several years have been asking us to forge in the feminine shadow, to understand, to go into the depths, to go into the roots, to really take a deep dive, Take a deep dive. What'd you find? Who'd you become? What tools did you pull out of that darkness? What tools did you pull out of the darkness? Okay? This is a lot to say. That's a lot to say. Yeah, in a personal way. What did you pull out of the darkness, and how are you creating with it? How we're creating with it is going to determine a lot of the upcoming events and how they're handled in the sense of worldly events. More to do with spiritual parents on another time and in another position in another video. For now, let's talk about what we are able to control and handle in our personal worlds. That's true. So with the feminine shadow, it's about to be a reemerging. It's like for the previous few years, we've had this kind of underground, getting into the dirt, getting into the dark, and really kind of roaming around, rooting around, finding what's there, picking up things on the ground, swimming around if the water's been involved. However that work has worked for you. And if it's work that you're called to do, because not everybody's called to sit in the dark feminine or the dark mother or the shit. Not everybody, you know what I mean? So if that's not for you, it's not for you, and I have nothing against that. Okay, moving on. If it is work that you're called to, though, it's been several years. Few. It's been a few of rooting around, swimming around, figuring some stuff out there on the ground. Venus retrograde and all these other transits, the dark moon moving into Scorpio, we got a full moon in Virgo, the eclipse, and then we got the full moon in Libra coming up. That the new moon in Libra was an eclipse back in October 2nd is when that happened, which Mercury was conjunct with the dark moon then. Anyways, it's a lot of dark moon, Venus, feminine shadow work. And we're about to be regarded and revered within the new positions that we have been working for. Yep. In the feminine energy and in that shadowed space, especially if you've been doing it in a spiritual pace, in a pace, a walking of things. And one of the things that happens when we start to emerge from the shadow is that there's resistance from the light. Not necessarily a fight, it's just a resistance. If you're lifting weights, it's resistance to build new muscle. Right? So if you've gone in and forged yourself in the shadow, and now all of a sudden you're coming back out and emerging into the light as something that has become stronger, is worth more, is more true and more real, and honestly probably more powerful in yourself also. Congrats. If that's something that's happening for you. Look at where the boundaries are pushing up against that work that you've been doing as this reemergence starts to happen. Because that's where you're doing something right. That is where you're doing something right. I don't know what it is, but that's where you're doing something right. Yeah, it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be comfy, you're supposed to be able to get the rest that you need, all the good stuff that you would need for you, right? And yes. And if it's working for you already, things are good, and then all of a sudden, because of this reemergent of the feminine shadow energy, all of a sudden there's resistance or something starts to get a little sticky or get, whatever it is. Oh, I must be doing something correct. If there's a pushback, let me just remind myself then. Okay, let me just remind myself. I'm doing everything I need to do. If it's true for you, remind. I'm doing everything I need to do. And that is all I can do. So I'm going to keep doing that. So remind yourself of all the work that you've really done. If there's resistance up against that dark feminine shadow that you have been forging in the fire of the night, that is now about to be rebirthed into the light. And sometimes remember, it's a birthright to fight. However you might do that. The dark mothers don't play about that kind of stuff. At least not in my experience. So, just keep it together how you would need to. Imagine it like this. If you like reading those fairy books, or you like reading books about magic that have to do with schools and colleges and academies and whatnot. If anybody writes a book like this, okay, you go and give me credit. I want to be able to read it. Okay, but anyways, Imagine that there's like a group of dark feminine people, however they might identify, and they go off to this secret college for like a couple of years, several years, however long, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, we've been prepared for a reason. Look at what's happening in our world right now. The other fairies are doing whatever they're doing. Now we have to use our powers that we've learned about that nobody else knows about and nobody else can know about because they're these secret powers that we learned in the darkness. It's ridiculous, but this is really like, it's a good storyline. And now we have to reemerge into the world. They know they're gonna cause trouble. They know they're gonna stir up some stuff, but it's like they can't not reemerge. It's time. This is what they went to school for. This is what they trained for. Hey, what did you train for? In the dark feminine, in the dark shadow. Reemergence. It's a reemerging. Reemerging. So however it is that you are working in that, moving in that, grooving in that, gratitude, reverence, and love to you, because you know what? Holding dark mother work in your practice is a hard work to work and to practice. So I revere it. Revere it, I do. Gratitude, reverence, and love to you. Keep doing what you need to do. Keep up your brew. I will too. And I'll talk to you soon.